Hello everybody, this is Joy from Shout4Joy Quilter, bringing you clue 4 of the Doodad mystery. This is the fall 2023 mystery. I've already uploaded the document, the file, the clue in the Facebook group, and so you can find that there. The clues will disappear in December. By Christmas, probably I might wait till after Christmas, but it's going to be on there only for a short time. So, without any more introduction stuff, here we go. We will start with our dark squares that we cut for this clue, and we are going to just cut them in half diagonally. They are going to go on either side of the pinwheel that we bordered last time. We put that pinwheel on point, so now we're going to put that on point. So basically we're going to be making an economy block. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the center on that long edge, put a pin in it, somehow mark it, and I'm going to match it up to the seam at the edge. Now I'm going to match it up to where the pinwheel ends, because that seam is on an angle. So I'm going to match it straight with that seam, the pin and the seam. Now I'm going to pin from the other direction just because I've got so much going on my medium fabric. I want to be able to kind of keep things going in the correct direction. So I'm going to pin, I'm going to carefully pin. I'm not going to stretch my dark. That's a bias edge. And then with that medium, with all the crumb pieces, oh man, I definitely want to be gentle with that. I'm going to stick that in there, and I'm going to tell you, it's not easy. I've got lots of stuff going on there. The first time I do this, I totally missed the dark. I have to find my center. This time I'm going to leave my pin in when I pin it in, and that way hopefully my pin got bent because I'm going through so much right there. So I'm going to leave that pin in there. It's all lined up with the seam on the pinwheel. And then I'm going to take a pin and pin right next to it. So I'm holding everything together. Then I can take that pin out. And again, be careful pinning. Don't stretch your bias edges. Just pin them in place. And then I'm going to take it to the machine. I have a good 1/4 inch on my walking foot, which I still have on my machine because, hey, it's there. I've still been working on my medium crumbs, and so I have the red thread in there. My purple thing helps me when I get to those seams, keeps them from flipping, getting caught, all those wonderful things. And I pull the pins as I come to them. I don't want to sew over them if I can help it. And I just sew down. Now you notice I pinned those opposite sides because that way they're pinned all at once. I can take the piece out of the machine and I can just turn it around and sew the other side. I could assembly line sew these. If I have a whole bunch prepped, I could just sew all down one side and then all down the other. But I didn't have a whole bunch prepped. Okay, there we go. And I forgot to hold my threads when I did this, and I had a thread nest on the back. Not a happy thing. If you get those thread nests, that thread vomit at the beginning, remember to hold your threads, both top and bottom if you can. On this machine I don't, because the bottom thread is cut by the machine, and so it's not long enough to catch. But that top thread gets down there. It makes a thread nest, thread vomit, whatever you want to call it, a glob of thread. And it wasn't a pretty thing. I had to take about 5 minutes to play with it and make it better. So there we go. And there's my thread nest. You can see it. And there's the two sides. Take it to the iron. And I still have a little glob of thread there, but it's much better than it was. So I'm going to press this as flat as I can. As flat as I can. Pressing that thread right into the fabric. And yes, my seam does look a little wonky. But when I press it, nobody's going to know. Okay, so I press. You notice I press toward the dark fabric. If I had crumbed my dark, I might have tried opening my seam. And here, I kind of tried to open my seam, but with all of that right there in the center, it is almost impossible for me to open my seam there. And because my dark is just a piece of fabric, it's way, way, way easier to just press toward my dark fabric. Now, this is something I forgot to do. After I pressed it, I meant to cut off my dog ears. I did not remember to do that. I just took it to the machine, or took it over and dealt with it later. Okay, so now I'm going to take my lights. I'm going to cut it in half, and those will go on opposite sides. Now you notice I'm not using crumb pieces there. So I'm going to switch it up. I'm going to cut another square so that I can have a different fabric on either side. I'm going to do crumb pieces on some, but not on any of these economy blocks with the pinwheel. This way I've got two different fabrics, so it'll kind of be like the crumb piecing going on. So I did the same thing as I did with the black. I found the center and I pinned. Now I'm taking it to the machine. This time I am remembering to hold my threads as I start. Look at that, smart me. And I did not have the thread vomit on the bottom. So run along there, use that purple thing to tame those bits from my crumb on my medium fabric. I'm trying my best to hit where the X would be, but with all the crumb and all of that, it's really hard to see where the X is. So I just sew along, and I will do the same on the other side. Again, that purple thing, your stiletto, whatever you use, it's your extra hand. And shoot, if my needle were to hit it, it doesn't bleed. Whereas if I tried to stick my finger in there, I can tell you a finger hit by a needle does bleed. You can get blood on your project, and we don't want that. Of course, the old way to get rid of blood is to spit on it. Your own spit is supposed to dissolve your blood. I'm not always a fan of spitting on my project. Hydrogen peroxide works very well. Okay, so there we go. We'll open it up, and I'm going to press it. I'm not going to show you that at the machine. Now, if you do crumb on both sides, oh, I know what I'm showing you here. I'm not showing you crumb. I'm showing you what can happen. You can't see it. I'm going to darken my thing here. Can you see that little bit of bleed through where the medium is bleeding through? See how it's just sticking out a little past my light. What I'm going to do, I'm going to hold my light out of the way. I'm going to take scissors and I'm going to trim away. I'm going to grade my seam for those of you who have sewn clothing. I'm going to grade my seam so that that medium fabric is not sticking up past my light fabric. And that way, when I go to press it, there's not going to be that visual bleed through on that edge anymore. See if you can see. Yep, there's no bleed through right there. See, so that is how you get rid of that bleed through. I just quilted a quilt not too long ago that had some of that bleed through. And was it worth going back and trimming all that? No, I just kept quilting. Okay, from clue 1. Now I'm going to back up. I'm going to back up a little bit because I did not show you this. Oh, I've lost something there. There we go. I did press toward the light fabric because I could not, for the life of me, I didn't want come on. I did not want to press against my all my crumb chunks. It just wouldn't do it. So I thought I had that in there, and I obviously didn't. Okay, from clue 1, we have some half square triangles and some squares. And I'm going to lay them out the way I think I had it in the instructions. And now I'm going to go double check my instructions. And I do have it laid out correctly. I could flip the block, the plain square around and figure out my best placement, but I was very happy with this. And so there you go. I'm going to pin because I have all that stuff going on the edge. I'm going to pin down there. And I'm going to get my thread so I can hold it because, yay, we do not want to have that thread nest. Get those pins out of there, and I'm going to stitch down. There you go. Stitch all the way down and take it out. And the pattern tells you how many to make of this. Now, the pattern, I think, tells you to press toward the square away from the half square triangle unit. You could press it open, but I have a seam right next to the seam. I'm trying to press that open. I'm just finger pressing, and I pull in my roller, and I can't make it behave because there's a seam so close. So I'm just going to press it the way the seam begs to be pressed, which is toward the square. So there you go. You have economy blocks with the triangle inside, or the pinwheel inside. I'm not going to worry too much today about my dog ears. I'm just going to leave those. Your pattern tells you how many of these to make. And then from clue 1, your pattern tells you how many of these to make. And you'll set those aside. If you are liking the crumb piecings, the making blocks from crumb bits, a book that I really, this is where I was introduced to crumb piecing, was the book Stash Statement by Kelly Young. It is out of print right now, and so it's harder to find. It's kind of expensive, but I just saw that this is being reprinted, new edition. I don't know. It's coming out in April, and the price will be okay. So that's something maybe you want to pre-order from where you pre-order your books. So, Stash Statement by Kelly Young. She's got some really fun quilts in here. I've finished one and I have a second one in process from her patterns. Fun. I really enjoyed taking a class from her, and it inspired me to do other things. Like I said, I'm using her patterns for a couple quilts, but I've also used the technique in other things, like our mystery quilt. So, thank you for following along with Clue 4. Next week, Clue 5. We are getting so close. I think we'll only have 6 clues. So we are really getting close. Yeah. Thank you. This is Shout4Joy with the Shout4Joy Shout4Joy Scrapbusters Mystery Quilt Doodad for fall 2023. And yes, I have had a long day. Have a great week, and I will see you again next week.